All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the world of indoor cycling,
Hmm. Interesting.
specifically Zwift, right? We've got
Yeah, Swift.
yeah, we've got some YouTube videos from Kendizle,
Okay.
the black British cyclist.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff, and then also like some reports kind of looking at the tech and like the impact these platforms are having.
Cool.
So I think whether you're, already out there like racking up the miles on Zwift or you're just kind of curious about this whole indoor training thing,
Yeah.
I think this deep dive is going to be pretty fascinating.
It is fascinating. What's really cool to me is how these platforms are really
Yeah.
changing cycling. We're seeing this merge of like fitness and gaming.
Right.
And it's creating this like really engaging experience.
Yeah, it's totally a shift. And like Kendizle's videos are a
Yeah.
great example of that, right? Like
That's
he's not
the-
just riding, he's like created this whole dedicated
Oh, wow.
indoor cycling space.
Oh, wow.
Like complete with, the rocker plate, turbo trainer,
Nice.
multiple screens,
Wow.
even special lighting.
You went all out.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That's awesome. I mean, it makes sense though, right? Like
Yeah.
as this indoor training stuff gets more sophisticated, people are going to want to like
Yeah.
invest in these like home studios.
Totally, yeah.
It makes you wonder like how will this impact like gyms in the future,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Or even like how cycling infrastructure
Wow.
is designed,
That's a great question. And it makes me think about something that Kendizle said in one of his videos.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of jokingly refers to himself as like the cyclist hated by car users. Because he prefers that controlled environment of indoor cycling. And it
Yeah.
made me wonder, like, is there a risk, with indoor training becoming so
Yeah.
appealing, so high tech,
Yeah.
that people maybe lose touch with the real world experience of like being out on the road?
Totally. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for
Yeah.
like facing the elements, dealing with like
Yeah.
unpredictable terrain and even, those occasional encounters with frustrated drivers.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's actually dive into Zwift itself.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have probably heard of it,
Yeah.
but like what makes it
Yeah.
different? What makes it stand out from just like
Yeah.
watching TV while you're on a stationary bike?
Well, for starters, Zwift isn't just about like distraction.
Right.
It's about like simulation.
Mm.
They've created these like incredibly detailed virtual worlds,
Oh, cool.
like Watopia,
Yeah.
Makuri Island,
Right.
that you can actually explore.
Wow.
They even have like real world locations too, like London.
Really?
Yeah. And Yorkshire,
Oh, wow.
like meticulously recreated.
Huh.
And the technology behind it is pretty impressive.
Wow, that's awesome. So it's not just like visuals,
Like
right?
they're not.
Just visuals.
Like Zwift also
Yeah.
incorporates like elements of like
Uh,
real world
I said
cycling
yeah.
physics,
Yeah.
like drafting.
Yeah.
Can you explain like how that works?
Sure. Yeah. Drafting is like in simple terms.
Yeah.
It's that aerodynamic advantage you get when you're like
Right.
riding closely behind another cyclist.
Right.
And Zwift's algorithms actually simulate this.
Oh, wow.
So they're calculating your position
Wow.
relative to other riders
Okay.
and adjusting your effort accordingly.
So cool.
It basically means like you can work together in groups,
Uh-huh.
just like in a real peloton,
Yeah.
to conserve energy and increase your speed.
That's so cool. So like it's not even just about like pedaling hard.
No, there's definitely strategy involved.
Yeah, there's strategy. Oh, wow. That's really neat.
Yeah, it adds like another layer of like complexity
Yeah.
and realism to the whole thing. Wow, that's super cool.
And the type of trainer you use plays a big role too, actually.
Okay.
So like a basic trainer might just provide resistance,
Right.
but like a smart trainer will actually like adjust the resistance based on the virtual terrain that you're riding on.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. Makes the whole experience
So cool.
way more immersive.
Wow, that's really cool. And speaking of like the social element,
Yeah.
Kendizle's always talking about these
Yeah.
group rides and events
Yeah.
on Zwift,
Right.
especially the Tour of Watopia. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So the Tour of Watopia
Yeah.
is basically a multi-stage event.
Okay.
It takes place entirely within the virtual world of Zwift.
Okay.
It's kind of like a virtual version of a major cycling race
Oh, cool.
with different stages, leaderboards,
Wow.
even like virtual jerseys for the winners.
Really? That's amazing. So this is like,
Yeah, it's a big deal in the Zwift community.
It's like a big deal.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like you're saying, it highlights how
Yeah.
these platforms are like blurring the lines between virtual and real world cycling.
Yeah, you're competing against real people.
Right.
Striving for real achievements.
Yeah.
Even though it's all happening online.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Kendizle mentioned a pro tip.
Oh, yeah.
For these big group events.
Yeah.
He says, join early.
Okay.
To secure a good starting position.
Right.
Then warm up separately and rejoin before the official start.
Oh, okay.
Why is that so important?
Well, imagine, right, you're lining up at the start line.
Yeah.
With hundreds of virtual cyclists.
Okay, yeah.
If you're stuck at the back.
Right.
It's going to be a lot harder to work your way to the front.
Yeah.
And stay with the lead pack.
Right, right.
So by joining early, warming up separately.
Yeah.
You can avoid that initial chaos.
Mm.
Give yourself a better chance of, like, actually competing effectively.
That's a really good strategy.
Yeah, it's a good tip.
Yeah, that's a good tip. But so Zwift isn't the only player in this whole
definitely
virtual cycling race.
Right. We're starting to see some interesting alternatives popping up.
Yeah.
And one that's kind of caught my eye is MyWoosh.
Oh, I was hoping we'd get to MyWoosh.
Yeah.
So what makes them different from Zwift?
Well, while Zwift focuses on creating these immersive virtual worlds, MyWoosh seems to be taking a slightly different approach.
Okay.
Emphasizing personalization.
Oh, interesting.
So it's less about exploring, like, pre-designed worlds.
Right.
And more about creating your own experience.
Really?
Yeah.
So, like, less theme park, more like
exactly.
build your own adventure.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really cool.
From what I've gathered,
yeah,
you can create, like, custom routes.
Wow.
And workouts, like, tailored to your specific training goals.
Cool.
Or even just your personal preferences.
Wow, that's amazing. So, like, it's a good option for someone who, like, wants more control over their virtual cycling experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, MyWoosh might be a good fit for someone who's, like, really focused on, like, specific training metrics or, like, even just wants to, like, virtually ride through their hometown or something.
Yeah, or like a specific route they've done,
right?
In real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean.
Yeah, it's kind of like you said. It's like comparing a theme park to a custom-built track.
Right.
They both have their appeal.
Totally.
And it really just depends on what you're looking for. In your virtual cycling experience.
Makes sense.
And, I haven't had a chance to try MyWoosh yet.
Right.
But I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So it seems like the world of virtual cycling is really opening up with all these different platforms and approaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
But before we go like too deep into, comparing and contrasting them, I'm curious to get your take on just like the overall impact of these platforms, whether it's Zwift or MyWoosh or, any others that might pop up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the impact is it's multifaceted, right? Like on a practical level.
Yeah.
They've made cycling more accessible.
Right.
You don't need expensive gear.
Right.
You don't have to worry about traffic or weather.
Right.
You can like fit it into your schedule more easily.
Yeah, it's so much more convenient.
Totally.
And that's like huge for people with busy lives or, maybe they don't have access to safe outdoor cycling routes or they have,
physical limitations.
Yeah, physical limitations that make outdoor cycling like a challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah, it really levels the playing field.
Yeah, levels the playing field.
In a way.
But beyond just like the practicalities, I'm also seeing like a real shift in the social aspect of cycling.
Right.
Kendizle often talks about like the global community that he's found on Zwift.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Riding with people from all over the world. It's crazy.
These platforms have created a new kind of cycling community.
Right.
One that like transcends geographical boundaries.
Yeah.
You can participate in group rides, races.
Yeah.
Even just like casual chats with people you might never have met otherwise.
That's so cool.
And this has been like especially valuable during times when physical gatherings were limited.
Right.
Like during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I remember seeing this like surge in online cycling communities during those lockdowns. Like,
yeah, it was a lifeline for a lot of people.
It was a lifeline.
Who were suddenly cut off from their usual routines.
Right.
And, like social connections.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, let's talk about the future.
Okay.
Like, what do you see on the horizon for virtual cycling?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like, are we going to be, plugging into the Matrix and racing on these, like, virtual bikes someday?
I mean, maybe not the Matrix just yet.
Okay.
But I do think we're going to see some pretty incredible advancements in the coming years.
Like what?
Augmented reality and virtual reality technology are already being explored,
Right.
which could create even more immersive and interactive experience.
Yeah, like I can imagine putting on a VR headset and like feeling like I'm actually riding through like the French Alps, wind in my hair, sun on my face.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we'll see more emphasis on social features, making it easier to connect and ride with friends, even strangers in these virtual worlds.
That's so cool, but it also makes me think about like the potential downsides too.
Right.
We talked earlier about the risk of like losing touch with the real world experience of cycling.
For sure.
Are there other potential drawbacks we should consider?
Yeah, definitely. One that comes to mind is like the reliance on technology.
Okay.
And the potential for it to like fail,
Oh, yeah.
Imagine you're in the middle of a virtual race.
Right.
Your internet connection drops or your trainer malfunctions.
Oh, that would be the worst.
It can be frustrating.
Right.
To say the least.
Yeah.
And then there's also, the question of cost.
Right.
While these platforms have made cycling more accessible in some ways, they also require an initial investment in technology, which can be a barrier.
Yeah, totally.
To people.
Yeah, like you need a bike, a trainer, a device to run the app, a stable internet connection. It can add up.
Totally.
Yeah. And what about, like, I'm curious, the potential for these platforms to exacerbate existing inequalities in cycling?
That's a really valid concern, While these platforms can create more inclusive spaces in some ways, they can also unintentionally reinforce existing disparities.
Totally.
For example, if someone can't afford the equipment.
Right.
Or they don't have reliable internet access.
Right.
They're effectively excluded from participating in this virtual cycling world.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and we need to be mindful of the potential for bias in the algorithms that power these platforms, If they're not designed carefully, they could perpetuate existing biases.
Totally.
Related to gender, race, body type, for example.
That's a really important point to consider.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it seems like there's so much to think about.
Yeah, both positive and negative.
Yeah, positive and negative.
As this virtual cycling world continues to evolve.
Right, and I kind of want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about, that comparison between Zwift and MyWoosh.
You're right.
You said it's like comparing a theme park to a custom-built track.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure, yeah. I think that analogy really captures like the essence of their different approaches.
Right.
Zwift with its like meticulously designed virtual worlds and like structured events offers this kind of plug and play experience. You jump in, you're immediately immersed in this like vibrant world,
Right.
And there's always something to do, whether it's exploring, training, or competing.
It sounds like Zwift is perfect for someone who like thrives on that sense of exploration and like the social aspect of group rides and events.
Yeah, totally.
But the flip side is you're somewhat limited to the experiences they provide, Yeah. You can't like design your own custom workout or virtual route.
That's where MyWoosh comes in.
Right.
It's less about the spectacle, more about the individual experience.
Okay.
You have more control over the environment, the training plan, the overall experience.
So it's like MyWoosh would appeal to someone who's maybe like more data-driven in their training or, wants to recreate specific routes they've ridden in real life.
Right.
Yeah.
Perhaps even incorporating their own like power data elevation profiles.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a very different approach.
And I think you're right. Like MyWoosh might also be a good option for people who are like maybe intimidated by the like gamified competitive aspects of Zwift.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a more laid back, personalized approach.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
But both platforms seem to be like really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in indoor training.
It's really cool to see.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how they continue to evolve.
For sure.
And maybe even like learn from each other's strengths, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll see more and more platforms emerging, offering different features, approaches, price points. It's a really exciting time for anyone interested in cycling, whether they prefer, the open road or the virtual realm.
It really does feel like we're at a turning point.
I agree.
Where technology is not just like enhancing the cycling experience, but also like reshaping how we think about fitness and community.
Absolutely.
It's pretty amazing to think about like how far we've come from those like basic stationary bikes just like shoved in the corner of the gym.
Totally. It's crazy.
And now we have like these entire virtual worlds at our fingertips.
Like complete with social interaction and structured training plans and
and like
realistic simulations of outdoor cycling physics.
It's wild. So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive, absorbing all this info about Zwift, MyWoosh, the broader trends in indoor cycling. I'm curious, like, what's standing out to you?
Your initial thoughts.
Are you leaning towards like, the immersive world of Zwift or the personalized approach of MyWoosh? Or are you like a diehard outdoor cyclist who wouldn't trade the open road for anything?
Good question.
Or maybe you're like me, like kind of intrigued by the potential of blending all three approaches.
Totally.
Could there be a future where we seamlessly transition between outdoor rides and like virtual training, maybe even using augmented reality?
Oh, that's interesting.
To like enhance our real world cycling experiences.
Oh, that's a really cool thought.
Right.
Imagine wearing like AR glasses that overlay, virtual routes or like training data or even like social interactions onto your real world view. It could revolutionize how we train, explore, and connect with other cyclists.
And think about like the possibilities for safety too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like imagine AR glasses that alert you to potential hazards. Or like provide real-time traffic updates.
Or even help you navigate like unfamiliar routes.
That's crazy.
It could make cycling safer and more accessible for everyone.
It seems like, the line between like the physical and virtual worlds is becoming increasingly blurred.
More and more blurred.
And cycling is really like at the forefront
for sure.
of this like evolution.
It's an exciting time.
It's an exciting time. So as we wrap up this deep dive into indoor cycling, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, we do.
Well, what are your thoughts on like
what do you think?
The future of cycling.
The future of cycling.
Are you like embracing the virtual world, sticking to the open road, finding a way to
or some combination
blend both?
Let us know.
Share your insights, your experiences, even your predictions for like what's next.
What's next
in the world of cycling.
We're all on this journey together,
we're all
exploring these new possibilities, pushing the boundaries of what's possible on two wheels.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into indoor cycling.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Keep those pedals turning, whether they're virtual or real.
And
we'll see you on the next deep dive.
See you next time.